Wade in the water, we did wade in the water, children wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. We are the sons and the daughters. We gotta stand up and make it loud. Just like our God told the Pharaoh, let my people go, go. We are a new generation from the ones who have come before. He's calling us into freedom. Let my people go, go. Wade in the water, we did wade in the water, children wade in the water. God said He's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water, we did wade in the water, children wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. We are the sons and the daughters. We gotta stand up and make it loud. Just like our God told the Pharaoh, let my people go, go. We are a new generation from the ones who have come before. He's calling us into freedom. Let my people go, go. We gonna shine and the shade. Give me a papa go rain, make the heavens. If you don't say you know what trouble, let my people go, go.
This is Lagoon Radio.
That we gathered through the years. If you don't say you know what trouble, let my people go, go. Wade in the water, we did wade in the water, children wade in the water. God said He's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water, we did wade in the water, children wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the
This is Lagoon Radio.
Good morning, great people, and a very big welcome to you as you join the conversation today on the Lagoon Health Talk at Lagoon Radio, broadcasting live to you from Marina, Lagos. And Lagoon Radio is your number one online gospel radio powered by the Diocese of Lagos, Church of Nigeria, Anglican Communion. And we have our social media handles on Facebook at Lagoon Radio Nigeria, Twitter and Instagram at LagoonRadio.Ng, and our YouTube channel at LagoonTV. I am your favorite radio Dr. Alabisi Simidele. Okay, the time is 17 minutes past 11 a.m. and last week on our last edition of Health Talk on Lagoon Radio, as usual, we've been doing mental health series for some weeks now, and we've been treating some couple of topics in our mental health series. So last week we talked about dissociation, and last week's topic and this week's topic are actually working hand in hand, and that's dissociation and dissociative disorder. So last week we said that dissociation is actually when most people they dream every now and then, and when one sense when one sense actually disconnects from the world around. And we said this dissociation is actually a mental process where one disconnects from their thought, from their feelings, from their memories, and also their sense of identity. And we talked about symptoms of dissociation. We talked about having noticing some things as some changes in the way one feels or in the way one tends to react to something, such as having an out of body experience, feeling like you're actually a different person, like feeling like your heart is pounding, or feeling like you're dead, and feeling emotionally numb, not even having emotions at all, and all that, becoming immobile, hearing voices in your head, having intense flashbacks that seem real, getting absorbed in a fantasy world that actually seems real. We also talked about the causes of dissociation, which includes trauma, most especially people that are actually suffering from something we call peri-traumatic dissociation, which actually could happen to people who have been through child abuse or who have experienced child abuse in a way or the other, sexual or physical assault, combat, torture, um, motor vehicle accidents, natural disaster, war. We also talked about hypnosis. We talked about certain drugs, like people who are addicted to a kind of alcohol content and illicit drugs as well. And meditation too. We said some meditators actually tend to become less aware of the happenings around them while they are meditating, and some expert meditators actually say that they lose any awareness of their self or bodies during a certain mindfulness meditation practices. So we talked about the diagnosis, the related medical issues, and so on and so forth, as well as the treatment, which includes psychotherapy. We talked about cognitive behavioral therapy, hypnotherapy, basic trauma treatment, family treatment, dialectical behavioral therapy, eye movement desensitization, and reprocessing. We talked about add-on medication. So today we'll be talking about dissociative disorder. Dissociative disorder are actually mental disorder that involve experiencing a disconnection and a lack of continuity between your thoughts, your memories, your surroundings, your actions, as well as your identity. So people with dissociative disorder escape reality in ways that are involuntary, or in ways that are unhealthy, and actually cause problem with functioning in everyday life. Dissociative disorder usually develop as a reaction to trauma and help keep difficult memories at bay. We have symptoms ranging from amnesia to alternate identities, depend in part on the type of dissociative disorder that particular patient might actually have. So times of stress can actually temporarily worsen your symptoms and making them more obvious. And if we can remember our previous topics on mental health series, we actually emphasized on stress being a major factor that could catalyze any mental health issue that one actually has. So treatment for dissociative disorder can actually include psychotherapy, like we said, and medication. Psychotherapy, especially talk therapy, and although treating dissociative disorder can be difficult in a way, but many people actually learn new ways of coping and actually starts to lead a healthy and productive life. Let's go on this music break, and we'll be right back to talk about the symptoms of dissociative disorder. We have the types of dissociative disorder. Let's go on this music break. Stay connected to Lagoon Radio, and we'll be right back.
This is Lagoon Radio.
If I was an eagle, I would lift myself, spread my wings and fly. If I was a lion, I would run into the jungle and give the loudest growl. And if I was the sun, yes, I would rise early in the morning and shine my light so bright. If I was an angel, I would sound the alarm for the whole of creation to bow at your feet. Yes, sir. I have come to give you knowledge, to give you worship. Hallelujah. I have come to give you knowledge, to give you worship. If I was a little child, I would sing and shout for joy. If I was a stallion, no, I would use my horsey power. If I was a shining star, I would illuminate everywhere. And if I was the son of a governor, I would make everybody throw a salute, yo. And if I could control the times, I would go back to the Garden of Eden. I will give you the worship that only you deserve. Yes, I will look for beautiful names like Aladero. Yes, I will go on someone Katewa. Bravo, correct.
All right, you're welcome back, and you're still listening to Lagoon Radio, and you're still tuned to Lagoon Health Talk. We've been discussing dissociative disorder, and dissociative disorder actually have types, and I'm going to be talking about 4 major types of dissociative disorder. But before that, let me briefly talk about the symptoms. Basically, dissociative disorder, the signs and symptoms depend on the type of dissociative disorder that you have, and the symptoms could actually include amnesia, that's memory loss of certain time periods, event, people, even personal information. Also, a sense of being detached from yourself or your emotions, and a perception of the people and things around you as distorted and unreal. You can actually also have a blurred sense of identity. You can have significant stress or problems in your relationships, at your workplace, and or other important areas of your life. And you can it also includes inability to cope well with emotional and professional stress, and also mental health problems such as depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts and behaviors. So we have, like I said earlier, there are 4 major types of dissociative disorder that I'll be talking about today. And we have dissociative amnesia, we have dissociative identity disorder, we have depersonalization disorder, and we have dissociative we have dissociative fog. Then, but there are 3 major dissociative disorder defined. They're actually defined in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder according to research, and this particular one is published by the American Psychiatric Association. And it says for dissociative disorder that the main symptom of dissociative amnesia is a memory loss that is more severe than normal forgetfulness, and that can be explained by a medical condition. You know, one thing is for you to actually tend to start forgetting something. Another thing is for you to have a severe memory loss that is way more than the normal forgetfulness. It's normal to forget things at times, especially when you're stressed or when you have a lot going through your head or when you have a lot of activities. But when it becomes severe, then it could actually tend towards what we call dissociative amnesia. And there are times that you can't recall information about yourself which is actually a very bad one. If you can't recall information about someone else, it's better. But when you can't recall information about yourself, then you know that it's getting out of hand. And when you can't recall events in a certain time, and when you can't remember people in your life, especially from a traumatic time. So dissociative amnesia can be specific to events in a certain time, such as intense combat, or more rarely can involve complete loss of memory about oneself. So it may sometimes involve travel or confused wandering away from your life. And an episode of amnesia usually occurs suddenly and may last minutes, hours, or rarely last for months or years thereabout. So for dissociative identity disorder, was formerly called multiple personality disorder, and this disorder is characterized by switching to alternate identities. You may feel the presence of two or more people living or talking inside your head, and you may feel as though you're possessed by other identities, and each identity may have a unique name. You may also have personal history or characteristics, which includes obvious differences in voice, gender, mannerism, and even physical qualities, as the need for eyeglasses. Someone could actually be asking, how is that possible? It is possible if you actually have an experience with someone that has dissociative disorder. So there are also differences in how familiar each identity is with others. People with dissociative identity disorder typically also have dissociative amnesia. They also have that as well. Then for depersonalization, derealization disorder. This particular one is actually an ongoing or episodic sense of detachment, or being outside yourself, observing your actions, observing your feelings, your thoughts, observing yourself from a distance, as if you're watching a movie. And that's what we call depersonalization. And other people and things around you could actually feel detached or foggy, or could look like a dream. And time may actually be slow or be faster than you can ever imagine, and the world could actually seem unreal, and that's what we call derealization. So you can actually experience depersonalization, derealization, or the combination of depersonalization or derealization. And the symptom, which can actually be profoundly distressing, can last for only a few moments, or it could actually come and go over the years. We also have causes, because there is nothing that happens. There's no medical condition that one actually has that wouldn't have a cause or the other. Even if the causes are not known, the risk factor could actually point towards the causes. So dissociative disorder usually develop as a way to cope with trauma, and this kind of disorder always form in children subjected to long-term physical, sexual, or emotional abuse, or less often a home environment that is frightening or highly unpredictable. The stress of war, even natural disaster, can also bring about dissociative disorder. Personal identity is still forming during childhood, as we all know, and so a child is more able than adult to step out of his or herself and observe trauma as it's happening to a different person. And a child who learns to dissociate in order to endure a traumatic experience can also use this coping mechanism in response to stressful situations throughout life. Let's go on another music break, and we'll be right back to talk about the risk factors, like I mentioned earlier, the complications of dissociative disorder, the prevention of dissociative disorder as well. Stay connected to Lagoon Radio, and we will be right back.
Rich boy on the beat, rich boy on the beat. We gon' let it flow, we gon' let it flow. Oh, na, 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 na. Oh, na, 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 na. Yeah. DJ. Waiting, mama, no fit do, you they do for me. Meeting Papa no fit do, you they do them for me. As I wake up every day, I dey thank God, oh. As you give me something to sing, I dey praise you, oh. Halle, 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 halle. Hele mama, hele. You the best me well, well. Oh, I don't job alone. I dey call you, I give it back. Ah, hey, whoa, you, whoa. I go praise you, they go. Hey, whoa, you, whoa. I go praise you, they go. Yeah, Diana Rekele. Now you be my daddy, oh. Hey, whoa. I go praise you, they go. Now you be a bumulero. I dey hold you, kakaraka. See you turn my life around. I am singing, mama, hey.
This is Lagoon Radio. This is Lagoon Radio.
All right, so welcome back, and we're still discussing dissociative disorder, and which is one of our topics under the mental health series here on Lagoon Radio. So, what are the risk factors of dissociative disorder? People who experience long-term physical, sexual, or emotional abuse during childhood are actually at greatest risk of developing dissociative disorder. And children and adults who experience other traumatic events such as war, natural disaster, kidnapping, torture, or extended traumatic early life medical procedure also may actually develop the condition which we know as dissociative disorder. So people with dissociative disorder are actually at increased risk of complications and associated disorders such as self-harm or mutilation, suicidal thoughts and behavior, sexual dysfunction, alcoholism and drug use disorders, depression and anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, personality disorders, sleep disorder, which includes nightmare, insomnia, and sleepwalking. We actually have people who sleep. We actually have people who sleepwalk really, and then another risk factor is eating disorder. Then we have physical symptoms, which includes lightheadedness or non-epileptic seizures, because we have people who actually experience seizures in one way or the other, the non-epileptic one, and now. So then another risk factors is people who have major difficulties in personal relationships, and who have difficulties at work. You know, There's no challenges that doesn't have a way out really, and dissociative disorder can actually be prevented because children who are physically, emotionally, or sexually abused, like we said, they have an higher risk or an increased risk of developing mental health disorder such as dissociative disorder. And if stress or other personal issues are affecting the way you treat your child, you need to seek help. You need to talk to a trusted person such as a friend. Don't forget trusted person in capital letter, such as a trusted friend, your doctor, or a leader in your faith community, no matter your religion. Just confide in someone. Then you also need to ask for help locating resources such as parent support group or family therapist. Then you can also look for churches or community education programs that offer parenting classes that also may help you learn a healthier parenting style. And if your child has been abused or has experienced another traumatic event, you need to see a doctor immediately, and your doctor can actually refer you to a mental health professional. And like I used to say, that you're paying a visit to a mental health professional, be it a psychiatrist or a psychologist, doesn't mean you have score. Let me put it that way. So that you're paying a visit to them doesn't mean you're mad, or doesn't mean you have brain touch thereabout, this consult type. So talking about the diagnosis of dissociative disorder. The diagnosis usually involve assessment of symptoms, the symptom we discussed earlier, and ruling out any medical condition that can actually cause the symptoms. Testing and diagnosis always involve a referral to a mental health professional to determine your diagnosis, and evaluation could actually come in different forms, like physical examination, whereby your doctor can examine you, ask you some in-depth question, which is expected of you to open up completely and not to withhold any information, and also review your symptoms and personal history. Certain tests can actually eliminate physical conditions, for example head injury, some brain diseases, sleep deprivation or intoxication, which can cause symptoms such as memory loss and a sense of unreality. Then we have psychiatric examination, like your psychiatrist can actually ask you questions about your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, and also discuss your symptoms, and with your permission, because here your cooperation is actually needed in a way. So with your permission, information from your family members or other people can actually be helpful. We also have diagnostic criteria, whereby your mental health professional, your psychologist or your psychiatrist can compare your symptoms to the criteria for diagnosis in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. That's another one. So for the diagnosis of dissociative disorder, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder actually have a list of some criterias, and I'll be picking them. And like I said earlier, the diagnosis is actually dependent on the type, or on your type of dissociative disorder, like the type we discussed previously, talking about the dissociative amnesia, the dissociative identity disorder, the personalization and the realization disorder as well. So for dissociative amnesia, if you've had one or more episodes in which you could not remember important personal information, which is usually something traumatic or stressful, or you can't remember your identity or life history, this memory loss is too extensive to be explained by ordinary forgetfulness. And one thing is to be forgetful, like the normal forgetfulness. Another thing is for it to be severe. Once it's severe, you need attention. So your episodes of memory loss don't actually occur only during the course of another mental health disorder, such as post-traumatic stress disorder, the commonly known PTSD. Your symptoms are not due to alcohol other drugs, although it could not be due to that, and they are not caused by neurological or other medical conditions such as amnesia or head trauma. So you can also experience some other type of dissociative disorder where you purposefully travel, experience confused wandering that involves amnesia, and that's the inability to remember your identity or personal information. And for dissociative identity disorder is when you display or others observe two or more distinct identities or personalities, which can actually be described in some cultures as possession that is unwanted or involuntary. So each identity, and that's why that reminds me. That's why you would actually see some children, even adults, and people will tag them Ogbanji. It's not all those things that are Ogbanji. Some of those things could actually be a mental health disorder, which is a dissociative disorder. We have some children that just want to be on their own because of one or two experiences which they've had at the beginning of their lives. So they just want to stay alone. There are even some, they could be active at this minute and at the next minute they are something else. And they will say, and you hear my beloved fellow Africans would say that Amada Moyelo Ogbanjini is not it's not all the things that are Ogbanji. It's not all. So each identity would actually have a pattern of its own of perceiving, relating to, and also thinking about yourself and the world. So your symptoms are not due to alcohol when it comes to this particular type of dissociative disorder, that's dissociative identity disorder. Your symptoms are not due to alcohol or other drugs, and your symptoms are not part of the broadly accepted cultural or religious practices. And the mistake we make most of the times in this part of the world, because we're actually we are very spiritual in this part of the world. Any small thing like this, yeah, carry her to church, they will carry 7 broomsticks and start flogging that child and say, I be a jello one. There are even some that will say, you need to carry different type of fruits to the beach and go and throw it inside the beach that the egbe that child have. They are from the Mami Water Kingdom. And so we've actually misplaced a lot of things, and the money you went to use and buy fruit and chew inside beach, use it and carry this child to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist and learn how to manage this child well. Even as an adult, if you're going through this, if you're having this symptoms of dissociative disorder, take medical precaution and don't just go all spiritual. Though the spiritual controls the physical, but at the same time wisdom is profitable to direct. You don't have to sit in a place and be firing prayer, because the Bible says walk and pray, not pray and pray. Thank you very much. Okay. For depersonalization, derealization disorder is when you have persistent or recurrent experiences of feeling detached from yourself, as if you're an outside observer of your thoughts, your sensation and action in your body, or you feel detached or experience a lack of reality for your surroundings, and you kind of start to feel as if you're in a dream, or the world is actually distorted, kind of. So your symptoms do not actually occur only during the course of another mental disorder, such as schizophrenia or panic disorder, or during another dissociative disorder. Your symptoms are also not explained by the direct effect of alcohol or other drugs, or in medical conditions such as temporal lobe epilepsy. That's another topic on its own, temporal lobe epilepsy. So your symptoms can actually cause you significant stress or problems in your relationship, at your workplace, or other important areas of your life. So the treatment of dissociative disorder, the treatment actually vary based on the types, on the types you have, and the treatment generally includes psychotherapy and medication. Psychotherapy is a primary treatment for dissociative disorder, and it's a form of therapy known as talk therapy, counseling, or psychosocial therapy, which involves talking about your disorder and related issues with a mental health professional. You can actually try as much as possible to look for a therapist with an advanced training or experience in working with people who have experienced trauma. Then for medication, although there are no medications that specifically treat dissociative disorder, but there could be prescription for antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication, antipsychotic drugs to help you control the mental health symptoms associated with your dissociative disorder. Some people with dissociative disorder are present in a crisis with traumatic flashbacks that are overwhelming or associated with unsafe behavior. And people with these symptoms should be seen in an emergency room, not kept in the bedroom or kept in the house. And if you discover that you or your loved one, my producer, I'm coming, I'm ranting off. If you or your loved one has less urgent symptoms that may indicate a dissociative disorder, you can just put a call through to your hospital or your psychiatrist. But don't forget, the duty of a psychiatrist cannot be underemphasized or underestimated. Do not say it's only people with conscore that that should be seeing a psychiatrist. You can also see a psychiatrist, and coupled with the fact that a lot of things are happening around us. What is even happening in our country, Nigeria, even in the world at large. You need your mental health to be stable. And do not forget to see a psychiatrist and a psychologist. That'll be all for today on today's edition of the Health Talk Show here on Lagoon Radio. Do join us same time next Tuesday on another fresh edition, where we'll be discussing another topic on our mental health series here on Lagoon Radio. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms: Facebook at Lagoon Radio Nigeria, Instagram and Twitter at LagoonRadio.Ng, and of course our YouTube channel on LagoonTV. And coming up now is the midday prayer. We'll be connecting with the All Souls Church Lekki for the midday prayer. I'll be right back for the afternoon drive show. I know you would not want to miss any of this. I still remain Olabisi Simidele Okay. Stay connected to Lagoon Radio. Bye for now.
This is Lagoon Radio.
In the water.